Welcome, welcome, welcome back. Hey everyone, welcome back. This is Lisa, also known as the AlkaliYogi. Welcome back to either my YouTube, hello YouTube, or welcome back to my Insta. Hello IG folks. So if you've noticed that I haven't been on an IG live for a minute, well, I was last week, but prior to that, you may have noticed that these reading sessions, also known as Decoding How to Eat, Move, and Be Healthy, Paul Chek's book. Those of you that know I'm a Chek practitioner. So happy to share some of the knowledge that I've acquired through my studies. But if you've noticed that I've not been here for a couple of weeks, specifically on the IG, it's because they had put me on a timeout. Apparently I had posted something and, the First Amendment is all but out the window. So even though it was not hate speech, but it does very much go against a particular narrative, some might say. What can I tell you? It meant that I had to my IG for a period of time, but now I'm back. It seems I'm allowed to be on this platform again, although I have definitely my concerns about social media and their ability to silence people, especially the voice of reason. Anyways, getting back to why we are this and what we are doing. Like I said, we are here to decode how to eat, move, and be healthy. It is the first book that I'm taking us all through. I think that we have been getting too much information from high profile people and influencers, just kidding, influencers, etc. And they may not always have necessarily the codes because we don't know where they got their information from. If it's like Gates, who went to school nowhere and has a degree in nothing and studied medicine never, then you could understand and you could overstand and understand why so much of the information that we have been given to quote unquote pursue or procure or retain our health has been not only conflicting, anti-intuitive, or just complete falsehoods. It's just not made it easier for us to reclaim our own abilities to self-heal, to grow, to nourish, to repair ourselves, which we are literally designed to do on a cellular level. So part of why I started this series, as you might know or may not know, is because I want us to go back to books and get information from reliable sources that hopefully are also citing their sources, right? So that there's a thread, if you will, where you can go back and you can see how this conclusion or this observation may have come about, as opposed to just doing whatever's cool, hot, and trendy on the market, but isn't necessarily geared towards your long-term success, your ability to incorporate such behavioral modifications into your lifestyle, thereby improving the quality of your life. And so, and also you might not be getting the results, period, that you want. You might be making yourself worse instead of better. So it makes sense to get back to the roots. And for me, part of that is getting back to books. Getting back to books means we are able to actually extract relevant information, extract information that hopefully has also been clinically proven. And although everything and anything will have a certain amount of bias, given that we're human beings, I at least know that Paul Chek, his intention as the founder and CEO of the Chek Institute, is certainly not to trick anyone or pull the wool over anyone's eyes, because frankly, I'm not getting paid to be here. He doesn't necessarily always see a paycheck whenever he's offering advice, whether it be on his YouTube or on his Instagram. Sometimes he is, but sometimes he isn't, right? So what I'm saying is we understand and understand that there's a cause greater than ourselves. And so when we share the codes with you, it's because we genuinely want to empower you, right? When you look at the medical industrial complex, this is now a corporation, if you will. Well, it's a bunch of corporations. It's very much a business sector. And let's be honest, if people are well and empowered and able to restore health, reverse dis-ease, that unfortunately would cut out a big chunk of the profits that are currently, being enjoyed by those that are actively participating in the medical industrial complex. But my job is not to worry about them and how they're going to hold on to their billions. My job is to share with you what I know, to empower you, and in order to help you do the best that you can for self before you have to go out and potentially seek further counsel or assistance from somebody in the medical profession, because obviously there is a time and a place for Western medicine. I've said this before. I'm not saying negate it. I'm just saying do your best to get yourself to a particular place where you know that you have addressed your sleep, you're managing your stress better, you're eating as you should be in order to fuel yourself, you're drinking water adequately in order to stay hydrated in order to stay hydrated and lubricated. So these are some of the things that we have to take ownership for, because unfortunately, increasingly, we seem to be living in a society where it's like, nope, it's not your fault. This was completely out of your hands. So I'll tell you what I'm going to do. Yeah. I'm just going to write you out something real quick, and your answer and solution is going to come right here in this pill format. And Bob's your uncle. You're going to mitigate those symptoms. You might get something else because there's a long list of potential side effects, but we won't worry about that. Like the whole thing is just creating a society of people that are extremely dependent on big government, big pharma, as opposed to community, to tribe, to own self, right? And again, checking yourself when it's like, okay, I was just out binge eating or binge drinking this weekend. Now I feel rubbish. I need to what? Not take a pill for that. I need to sort myself out. You know what I mean? So again, empowering all of us to grow up, to put it simply. And speaking of growing up, yeah, if you want more of the codes, I can't obviously share all of the codes here with you. I am holding a seminar this coming Saturday, which is the 22nd of April in the year 2023. It will run from 2 p.m. till 5 p.m. That is 1400 till 1700 Eastern Standard Time. It is available online. You can go to 532yoga.com. Again, that's 532yoga.com. Go into their workshops area, and you'll find my workshop coming up. It's all things you need to know about nutrition, titled How to Eat to Live. You know, how to eat so that you're living and creating more life and not disease that will eventually lead down to death being the final symptomology. So if you need the codes because you've been confused because this celebrity is doing that thing, but this influencer is promoting something else or yada, 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 then come to the seminar. And if you can't be here in person because you're not in the United States, guess what? You can take it online. The seminar includes a 60-minute yin practice designed to facilitate elimination and digestion, right? And that's curated by a yoga teacher like myself who has not only 800 hours of yoga teacher training, but also I'm an IMS level 1 with the Chap Institute, where I have my integrated movement science, corrective exercise coaching certification through them. So I'm able to add a lot to the practice, giving both of these modalities to ensure that you get the best opportunity at facilitating and extracting nutrients, eliminating what you need, and then pushing out all the waste afterwards. So it will begin with that. Then we're going to have a 90-minute lecture because frankly, I have a lot that I want to share with you. I want to speak to you all about bioindividuality, so your metabolic type. And by the way, if you sign up for the course, your metabolic type is going to be included. I'll send out the questionnaire to you so you complete that and send it back to me. And then finally, we'll have a Q&A. So you're getting a yoga practice curated by, a yoga teacher and an IMS Checkie, level 1. Czech practitioner. You're also getting a 90-minute lecture from a holistic lifestyle coach, also with the Chap Institute. And you're going to get a 30-minute Q&A. So loads of that. Oh, and did I mention that this is all being powered by Ruani, the Better For You brownie. It's adaptogen because it has medicine in it, herbs that promote healing. It is nutritious and it is gut-free because I am on my journey for restoring my gut health. After my last trip abroad to Africa, I had an extremely bad breakout in terms of psoriasis. I have been dealing with psoriasis on and off, but this time I know what I need to do, and that is to obviously cure my gut, heal the gut. And so the first thing I need to do is avoid all dairy, avoid all sugar, and then of course, avoid all grains. But we can get more into that and how you can heal, how you can detoxify, how you can reverse pathology, symptomology, ultimately sickness in your body by just overstanding and understanding which foods fuel versus which foods are going to more than likely lead you down degeneration and disease. So you have to overstand and understand this. Going to share the codes with you to use some of Kanye's language. I want to share the codes with you. So please show up on Saturday. Let's do this together. Not only do you get all of the wonderful stuff I mentioned, but you also get to take home a gift pack of Ruwani's gluten-free, grain-free, gut-friendly adaptogen brownies, which are, because even whilst I was on the timeout on the IG, you know, when they wouldn't let me go live, I was comforting myself and self-soothing and coping with my tea and my Ruwani. Kidding, but not kidding, you know, because I know as a holistic lifestyle coach, I shouldn't be using food to help self-soothe and calm. I have too many tools in my toolbox that I could be pulling out for things like this. But, you know, 80-20, so 20% of the time when I'm just happy to just be a human and flawed, then, you know, I will sometimes turn to a dark piece of chocolate to bring a smile back to my face. And on that note, I think we're ready. Yeah, I think we're ready to get into it because this is quite a meaty chapter. So IG folks, if you've missed the live the last few weeks, because now I've just shared with you why I was on timeout, you can always go to my YouTube channel to catch up on whatever you missed. And YouTubers, always great to be back here in this space. Please don't forget to like so we can get these videos out to as many people as possible because the information here is literally life-saving. I cannot say this enough. The information is life-saving. When you understand that your choices add to either more life or less life, it's pretty much that simple, then you understand why being conscious and aware of of the choices that you're making and making the optimal choice for you more times than not will definitively lead you to results that will floor you, that will completely and utterly floor you. I'm going to tell you what the doctors don't want to tell you. Again, 80% of the ailments that most Americans or people in the West are suffering from, whether it be diabetes or autoimmune disorders or skin disorders, like in my case, psoriasis, right? 85% of that stuff can be reversed on your own. Cleaning out the body, the colon and the gut, repairing it, right? Managing your stress, making sure that you're breathing adequately, diaphragmatically, getting to sleep on time, adequate hydration, making sure that your mind is not boggled down with stinking thinking, right? Getting enough movement so that you help those oscillating pumps do what they're supposed to do, which is facilitate elimination and removal. After, of course, they've extracted what they needed to extract in order to give you more life, more fuel. Do you know what I mean? So it's pretty straightforward. It's actually not very complicated. We like to keep it simple in the Czech world, which is why, you know, we address the 6 foundational principles with you all. We get into the last 4 doctors that you'll ever need. And just like that, easy breezy, lemon peasy, 85% of what's now considered common, but should never be considered normal, not ever considered normal. But 85% of what's considered common will just poof, just like that, disappear. And you've done it all on your own. And then what you have to take you forward are behavioral modifications that you can continue to practice in order to maintain this new health that you've either obtained or that health that you have maintained, which would be my preference. It's always better to prevent than it is to reverse or cure, obviously. So today's topic is really, really hot. This is a hot topic. It's chapter 13. It's called Never Cut Calories. So if you're following along, and of course, I'm specifically doing this for people that don't have the same resources as I do, I'm wanting to share. Again, acknowledging the fact that it's been a difficult couple of years, inflation, et cetera, et cetera. Banks are doing God knows what, although I have an idea because I am trained as an economist, but we won't get into that. That's a whole other live. But, basically, sometimes for a lot of people, money is tight right now. And so what's the best thing that we can do as a community, as a tribe, even if we're not close to each other physically, geographically, we are close thanks to technology. So I'm going to share with you what I have in my library. And I would hope that you would do the same, and let's keep a conversation going and flowing so that we can continue to add, because guess what? Information is constantly changing because change is the only constant. And so science is constantly evolving. Don't get mad, IG, that I just said that. Right? And so observations are always going to appear differently over a period of time, right? They're going to change. Hypotheses are going to also change into something else, progress into something different. And that's basically just the mode of life, right? And so even what I'm reading to you now, most of it is still pretty current. But if you know of anything else that has come into this space that you maybe would like to update me on, please share, because it's given as I do this for a living, I want to always have the most up-to-date information so that I can help to inform you, and then you can make an informed decision in terms of, how to best take care of yourself, which is really what we should be learning in school, right? I mean, can we all agree that we could be learning a lot of this stuff in school, that would be a great place if they taught us things like how to manage money, relationships. I think I've said this to you all before, how to eat accordingly, how to not use food as a source of entertainment or to help with emotions and managing and coping with emotions. There's so much they could be teaching us that would improve our quality of life once we left school. I feel like oftentimes, even though I went all the way through university, by the time I came out of uni, I was like, so where's my life manual now? Because I've done what I was supposed to do up until this point. I've pretty much followed the path that I was, told I needed to. But then, how do I procure, maintain, or retain great relationships? Because those things impact your quality of life and your health far more than the amount of money that you make or your career. So loads of things there that we should all be questioning, what we are getting from and maybe not getting, what we are currently getting and maybe not getting from the educational system as it is, teaching us to be closer to food, to recognize carrots, chickens, and how things are used at different times of the year and for different purposes, how to not be wasteful, how to use the whole veggie or the whole animal. All of these things I think would really serve us as humanity. How to grow our own food, how to test for water to make sure that it's clean, how to test whilst out in nature if food is safe to be consumed or not, if it's edible. These are life skills that we need to survive. The whole world can't just be a concrete jungle. Do you know what I mean? And what I noticed, even as being a New Yorker and a Londoner for many, many years, is that whilst street sense and savvy and street wit and smart is definitely important as a survival tactic for sure in big cities, is I found that those things didn't necessarily translate for me when I would be like out going for my walks in the woods at, say, like, outside of Usha's grounds in Honduras or in remote parts of Africa, where I just didn't understand the terrain. Okay, well, what can I do with this? I can't identify that leaf. I don't know if this fruit is poisonous or not, yada, 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 right? So, and I think that reality, even though we see a lot of big cities and all the rest of that around the world, I reckon that reality is still the majority of the planet, meaning that I believe that the majority of the planet is still not a city, right, but is still natural. And so when you consider that, it's important to learn how to navigate in those spaces and how to stay alive in a fully natural environment. Do you know how to start fire? Do you know how to tell the time based on where the sun is, right? We can't be relying solely on technology because we have our own technology within. And the cleaner your mind and your body is, by the way, the more easeful that reconnection will be to the source, to nature, so that you get that sense of intuition, like, oh, I can go in that direction, or I can eat this particular fruit. That plant or that leaf there is poisonous. I'm going to steer clear of that. These are important things to know. Oh, how do I locate water in this space? Okay, well, I can see these particular things are growing here. This type of vegetation is available here. So that leads me to believe that there might be a stream, not too far off. All of these things are important for us to know and to exercise, because truly, cities can be here today, gone tomorrow. And then all we have is Mother Nature in her raw glory. And we're going to need to, at that point, if and when that happens, get on our feet very, very quickly, fam. Very, very quickly, right? In order to stay alive. Oh, this animal is going to come for me versus that animal, which, is not a threat to me. All of this stuff matters. And as a New Yorker and a Londoner, I didn't have that. And I would say I still don't. It's something that I'm very much working towards, is creating that sense of comfort and easefulness in myself in a natural environment, the way that I have in large cities, which I feel very comfortable in. So back to the topic at hand, which is never cut calories. Now, I'm sure that that's a really loaded statement for America, because Americans, Canadians, etc., have been told for probably close to 40 years, if not more, count your calories. What you consume and bring in, you have to overexpend and get out so that you don't, quote unquote, gain weight. But there are a lot of flaws with counting calories, and I'm going to get into them now. I'm going to let the book do the speaking, but I always like to chime in now and again. So allow me to clearly state my position before we go much further. This is Paul Chek speaking. Calorie restricted diets don't work if you want to permanently lose weight. If you want to lose weight, you are not alone. According to Dr. Chap of the International Obesity Task Force, incidence of obesity is on the rise throughout the world, making it one of the fastest developing public health concerns. The World Health Organization, the WHO, has described obesity as a worldwide epidemic. It's estimated that nearly 250 million people worldwide are obese, which is about 7% of the adult population. Obesity is particularly prevalent in the US, where over 1/3 of the adult population is obese, and 1 in 7 children and adolescents are also obese. An incredible 60% of the American population is overweight. Let that land for a moment. Just because it's common doesn't mean it's normal, okay? So now we see that it's become common. It's more than half. An incredible 60% of the American population is overweight. So yes, this has become common, but that which is common doesn't need to become normal. Consider that. Not everything that is common needs to be, should be, or is normal, especially when you compare it to life in nature. Though obesity rates in other countries are lower than in the US, the rate of increase in the UK and several other countries signals an alarming trend with serious consequences. Now, I've been saying this for a really long time. I'm not surprised that the UK and other countries are quickly catching up to America's statistics. I find that it typically tends to happen first with the English-speaking countries, because all of these horrible ideas, and I'm going to call them exactly what they are, like removing seeds, modifying and splicing and engineering food, all of this, you can ride for this until the cows come home and say that this was necessary and it needed to be done, because there simply wouldn't have been enough food to feed the planet. But guess what? We are sicker than we've ever been. We are sick, beyond belief sick. So obviously, it's not working. What we have tried to do over here on this side of the pond, i.e. tamper with food, spray it, splice it, and create entirely new different foods altogether, none of that has served us, because now we have autoimmune diseases that we never even had 100 years ago. Lifestyle changes that we didn't even have 100 years ago. 85% of the things that have become, again, common but should never be considered normal in the West are in fact things like autoimmune, lupus, psoriasis, eczema, insomnia, diabetes, which also in itself didn't exist, heart disease, etc. also was marginal at best just in the early 1900s, to the point where the person that created the cardiograph machine was told he should invest in another invention instead and shift his focus, because there simply weren't enough people having heart attacks in the early 1900s or the early 20th century. There simply weren't enough people having heart attacks for a machine like a cardiograph to even be considered worthwhile. But here we are 100 years later, and it is one of 2 major killers in this country: heart disease and cancer. Also, cancer highly linked and correlated to behavioral lifestyle choices, stress levels, obviously food, etc. So it's not working. it hasn't worked. And it will never continue to work because you are trying to make a natural organism, such as your body, ingest things that are unnatural. And no matter how many twists and turns and creative language you can use and semantics that you can throw in there that will fool your ego into thinking it's necessary that we spray the food, it's necessary that we modify the food, it's necessary that we remove the seeds, or even like some of the flavor profiles like eggplant. Did you even notice that eggplant used to be quite bitter and now it's not? Well, it's because it's been bred out. But imagine the consequences of that. We know that by universal law, for every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction. So to think that everything that we're doing is not going to have a consequence is being childlike at best. It's being foolish at worst. And this is what I'm trying to tell you all, is I need you all, and this is what Paul Chek has been trying to communicate to us as well, is that, fam, it's time that we wake up, that we grow up, that we show up, and frankly, that we clean up, because things are getting bad. Did you see the post I put up a couple of days ago, what they're doing to the milk? Have a look. Look at me spilling my tea. You'd think I'd never had tea before. My gosh. I sure hope I have a tissue. Anyways, I'm so passionate about this yet that I can't even help but spill tea on myself. All right. So you've probably tried some sort of diet, most likely a calorie restricting diet. There are currently about 2,000 diet books to choose from, each claiming miraculous results. Why then is obesity becoming an epidemic? It's because people have no Is it because people have no self-control and simply eat too much? Not likely. It isn't how much you eat, it's what and when you eat. Here's the good news. You don't have to starve or punish yourself with hours in the gym to lose weight. However, you do need to learn how to eat right in order to bring your body back into balance so that it will function at an optimal level. What diets do to your body? Calorie restricting diets don't work in the long run because they disrupt important hormones and enzymes. Skipping just one meal or eating too many carbohydrates for your primal pattern or metabolic type can result in changes that make it more difficult for the body to lose fat. Initially, the response to a skipped meal is an elevation of stress hormones, also known as cortisol. The body then responds to the stress signal by releasing stored glycogen from the liver into the blood to raise your blood sugar. After all, your body thinks that you're in a life-threatening situation. Repeated bouts of stress result in yo-yoing between high and low blood sugar, creating yet another major stressor on the body. An overstressed body will not function at an optimal level. For many, this is not the ideal state for losing weight. So when we skip a meal, right, our bodies not being in tune with this modern lifestyle and busy schedules and corporations needing us to be their worker bees, et cetera, the body just assumes, oh, you're in danger. You're either trying to stay alive by, running faster than a lion here, or you're in a place where there isn't food. So again, another reason to be in fight or fight, making things very, very dangerous for you, right? That's how the body sees things. It's pretty intuitive in that. If you're skipping a meal, there has to be a good reason for it. And so it's just going to deduct you're either trying to run to stay alive from a bear that's chasing you or a lion, right? Or you're in a bad place. You're at a place where there's no food available. Either of those situations are going to trigger a stress response in the body. And any stress response is going to drive your blood sugar levels up and not help with any fat loss. In fact, it will only help retain fat. Because again, your body doesn't know when it's going to be able to breathe a sigh out of relief, right? And when it knows definitively that it has a period of parasympathetic to look forward to, which it doesn't know that because it's going based on the fact that you've skipped a meal. This is not good news. That's the information that it has to work from. When your body instead knows that there's a parasympathetic response happening, then it can release fat, right? But so long as you're in a stress response, it's going to hold on to the fat because it needs to preserve the energy. See, what we consider to be fat and fat cells, the body recognizes, apart from the fact that some of those fat cells are also toxic, but outside of that, these fat cells are considered to be your fuel. And if you need to go into a state of hibernation, you may not have access to a meal anytime soon because you might have to run to get away from said lion or said bear, right? Then it's going to need to hold on to that fat, hold on to that sugar for dire emergencies. So that's how the body interprets. You missing just one meal will create that sort of a response. The body is extremely quick at responding to whatever situation is currently taking place. There isn't like necessarily a delay here. If you eat too many carbohydrates, your body must release insulin to now lower the blood sugar levels. Skipping meals or not eating enough of the right foods also keeps insulin levels high because the body thinks that you are in famine. This is what I was just trying to explain. It thinks that you might have to hibernate for a while. And so this is very stressful. Or that where you are, there's simply no food to be eaten. Again, very stressful. Potential famine is approaching. And so it is forced then to store energy whenever it is supplied, which is why I said when you are stressed out and you've created a stress response, the body is going to hold on and not let go of fat. This is important that you guys understand and understand this, because when you do, then the people that are playing these games out here, like, oh, take this shot and you'll have weight loss, or count your calories, or eat these foods that are low in fat, they're misleading you. And they're doing it for the most part intentionally. But they are counting on the fact that you are so confused and conflicted that you're going to just go with whatever is on trend this month, next week, last year, because you're not able to make any kind of an informed decision. You're just trying everything and anything that's getting any type of buzz because you don't have the foundation. You don't have the overstanding and the understanding. And, not to bring this up again, but I feel compelled to, what happened 3 years ago, which I have to be very careful in terms of how I bring this up on both of these platforms. Because both of them, if I say certain things that may not be considered acceptable in the mainstream, will definitely impede my ability to communicate with you all. So I'll just say this. Because people didn't understand and understand how viruses work, right? How they actually work, they were able to, again, throw a whole bunch of stuff at us that those of us who just knew a little bit, because I'm not a scientist and I'm not a doctor, right? And I'm not is it an epidemiologist, people that specialize in virus. I'm not any of these things. But I knew enough, right, about, like, for instance, if the presence of a virus is so low in your body that you don't have symptomology, that you're not going to pass that on, right? And that asymptomatic transmission was minuscule at best because, again, you don't have enough of a virus presence for you to even have symptoms, never mind to pass it on. But do you see how if you don't know just like the very basics without having to be an expert, because there are always going to be people who obviously know more and you should consult with them. But having a little bit of information can at least help you tune out what we know definitively is a strategy, which is a strategy to make people comply, is to create a lot of chaos and confusion. Because when people's minds are boggled with like, well, I don't know what to do, so just tell me what to do, then they're going to be more susceptible to complying and following, whatever recommendations or mandates, right, they are able to stir up. So knowing a little bit about everything, including body and how it stores fat, is critical if you're ever going to really achieve permanent weight loss and get to your ideal weight goal, which should be a healthy weight goal, right? This is not about you getting onto Victoria's Secret's runways. This is about you getting healthy. So that's what we're working on here. So again, if you eat too much carbohydrates, your body must now release insulin to lower blood sugar levels. I'm going to reread this because it's important. Skipping meals or not eating enough of the right foods also keeps insulin levels high because the body thinks that you're in a famine and it is forced to store energy whenever it's supplied. If you are active, insulin will store sugar in the muscles. But if your muscles are not being used or if the muscle cells are full, your extra calories will wind up in the fat cells. Exercising muscles keeps them sensitive to insulin since an active muscle wants to take in sugar for energy. Active muscles become insulin resistant and shuttle more and more calories to fat cells. Sorry, excuse me, let me reread that because that was a contradiction. Inactive muscles become insulin resistant and shuttle more and more calories to fat cells. A diet calling for a high consumption of carbohydrates beyond ideal for your particular primal pattern or metabolic type will make you progressively insulin resistant. All right. So, again, your food has to be your medicine. You just have to understand and understand how to fuel yourself. Accumulating fat in the middle of your body is an indication that you have, in fact, become insulin resistant. The medical name for this is Syndrome X. Again, accumulating unwanted fat around your midsection and Syndrome X are usually the result of dieting, yo-yo dieting, consuming too many carbohydrates for your primal pattern or metabolic type, and a lack of exercise. Once the fat cells in your midsection are full, the fat accumulation extends to other areas of the body and you become progressively more obese. Because muscles and fat cells become progressively less sensitive to insulin, blood sugar levels rise higher, forcing the pancreas to overwork in an attempt to lower the blood sugar levels, and eventually you become a type 2 diabetic. Did you take that down? This is what I've been trying to explain to you all for weeks. You are, at least in part, responsible, at least 50% responsible for your health or lack thereof today. Your behavioral choices, decision making has brought you here, even if the medical professionals are not going to validate that. And yes, a part of that is also obviously out of your hands. You can't help how much chemtrails are out there in the environment. You can't help necessarily if they put fluoride in your drinking water, but you must become informed, unfortunately. The onus is on you because it's obviously not the leaders who are going to be preserving and protecting our health. And I use the term leaders very loosely here, right? The quicker you understand that these people have been wined and dined, treated to, family vacations in the Hamptons, private flights to the Bahamas, the quicker you understand why they don't work for you, they work for the corporations that lobby them. They don't work for you. And they've not worked for you in ages. If they were working for you, then we would see a society that is thriving, right? We would see a society that is healthy instead of sick and obese, anxious and depressed. Hi, gamer boy. Thank you. Right? We would see people not just living and surviving, but we would see fertility on the rise again, right? We would see, again, less medication being prescribed for things like anxiety and depression. We would see a whole slew of different. Our reality would be completely different if our leaders were actually working for us. This is why I say empower yourself, take ownership, allow me to share the codes with you so that you can either get your health back or maintain it. Obviously, preventative is always better than curative. So anytime you miss a meal, yes, just one meal, your body increases the releases of lipogenic, which are fat-storing enzymes. When these lipogenic enzymes increase, the enzymes that you really need, the lipolytic or fat-burning enzymes, are decreased. This effect is much more pronounced in women than men. That's why there's such a difference in how women gain weight versus men. I'm going to repeat this to you all, and then I'm going to show you a short demonstration or a short little short diagram, because again, this is really important that you understand and understand this so that you can be your own healer, your own chemist. You can be in charge of your own life and quality of life once more. Anytime you miss a meal, just one meal, your body increases the release of lipogenic, which are the fat storing enzymes. Think liposuction, right? Lipogenic. And when you do this, because in the universe there's constant yang and yin, there's a need to always balance things out. And for every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction, right? When these lipogenic enzymes increase, then the enzymes that you really need, which are the lipolytic or the fat burning, those are decreased. That effect is much more pronounced in women than in men. All of that, guys, from missing one meal. Right? So now I'm just going to show you the little diagram. First to the YouTubers. Whoops, there we go. See the ratio of lipogenic versus leptogenic in men and women. And as you can see, women are more wired to retain fat, and that's perfectly natural, right? Because we bear children, and so sometimes we need a little bit more, not in terms of weight, do we need more, but just a little bit more, because remember that fat is also considered energy, right? Fat is not just a term to that's negative in connotation. Fat is also fuel. It's energy. In fact, for those of you that don't know this, here's another little bit of education that's important that you understand and understand. Guess what builds your hormones, your connective tissue, your growth repair hormones, your growth hormones, your repair hormones, your tendons, your connective tissue, the cartilage, all of that is built by fat. So this idea that we should be avoiding fat is actually counterintuitive. It is not what we're supposed to do. We need things that are fatty because that's how we're able to create more cells, create more muscle, create more tissue in the body. But notice how they've been telling us for a good 40 years or so here in the West to avoid fat, avoid fat. Well, you look at any of the countries around the world that are consuming high-fat foods, quality foods, natural foods. I don't mean high fat in the form of crisps or chips or fried chicken. I mean fat in the form of nuts, coconuts, avocado, amazing for you. Raw butter, amazing for you. Raw dairy, great for you. And those societies that eat that way, the societies that still eat that way, that are not consumed with counting calories, those societies are the ones that are considerably healthier than ours. This society, bar none, sickest on the planet. Richest in terms of wealth, but poorest in terms of health. So it's not working. Too, I want to say about counting calories is that when you count calories as your way of quote unquote living, right? You're negating the fact that 200 calories from a fruit bowl, right? I've got a fruit bowl that's waiting for me, some breakfast, some organic blueberries, organic mango, organic grapes. Although they're seedless, which we should all be worried about because they classify organic fruit and vegetables that are without seeds as organic. It says a lot there, but hey, neither here nor there. 200 calories from that is considerably different than me getting 200 calories from some biscuits or a piece of cake. It doesn't account for what's actually giving me life force versus what's taking it away. That's the other issue. Because again, since there's no neutrality, everything is either giving you life or taking it away. You again have to take ownership of that and say, okay, well, if I'm not eating something that's definitively giving me life and fuel, helping me to detoxify, helping me to remove waste after I've extracted the nutrients that I need. If you're not doing that, then you are definitively doing the opposite, which is adding acidity, mucus to the body, right? And creating a breeding ground for disease. 100%. 1 + 1 = 2. Is that simple? You know, cheeses, again, if you can get yourself organic, raw would be better, but even with cheese, I would say in moderation. But yeah, you can get a good amount of protein also from cheese in moderation, but you have to be really careful. Because the thing with cheese too, right, is that, again, sharing more codes with you, is that you would want your cows or goat to have been grass-fed. And unfortunately, most of the cows and goats, even the ones that are quote unquote pasture-fed, have also been fed grains, which is completely unnatural to their diet. But they're forced to eat grains in some cases, wheat in some cases, corn in some cases, soy, because, well, America produces far too much grains. As far as food goes, America produces grains above and beyond anything else. It's a big cash crop with zero nutritional value. And in fact, 85% of the diseases that are out there today that are common, but not normal, are due to poor gut health. And one of the first things that grains do is destroy your gut. They compromise it at the very least. So going back to the cheese and the cows, right? Or the goat and the cheese. It's really hard to find now chickens or cows or goats that have been truly grass-fed and that haven't been pumped any kind of hormones, haven't been pumped any kind of grains. Because if you're, again, needing to restore your health, if you're coming back for your health, right? Most of us need to work on our gut first and foremost. You don't want to be consuming, at least not cheese that comes from something that was grain-fed, because if they were grain-fed, you're ultimately also being grain-fed. So imagine if you have a gluten intolerance like I do. It's very hard for me, who has someone with a gluten intolerance and who's also proactively healing my gut in real time right now as I'm speaking to you all, to find now eggs or cheese that come from animals that were truly, truly grazing on grass, which is what they're supposed to be doing naturally in their natural habitat and environment. Whereas in most cases here, they've been pumped up with grains because the government needs to get rid of some of this excess, right? And it helps to plumpen them up and fatten them up. But even in them, it's creating a lot of disease, right? That's why our animals are catching up to us humans and becoming virtually just as sick. So this is getting really, really long now. I want to kind of wrap this up. So let's wrap this up in a nice little bow, and we'll come back to it next week, because this is a heartier chapter 13 on never cutting calories in the book, again, How to Eat, Move, and Be Healthy. In case you don't know where we are reading from, Paul Chek's first book, if I'm not mistaken. So the entire process of dieting, constantly being in a fight or flight state with elevated sympathetic nervous system activity and eating incorrectly, will leave you tired. Thanks to junk food manufacturers and the media, most people don't understand. Did you catch that? I'm going to reread that. Thanks to junk food manufacturers who lobby the people that you vote into office and the media, right? Most people don't, and I'm going to switch it from understand to overstand, that they are gaining weight because they're eating too much. Because they're eating incorrectly, not because they're eating too much. It's not that you're eating too much, it's that you're eating incorrectly. Instead of having a pizza and a burger, have 5 salads. Clean salads, not the kind of salads that you get in the chains and the franchise stores, like a real salad. Chickpeas, maybe throw in some, mustard greens, some watercress, some arugula, some red onions, some scallions, some tomatoes, some peppers, some avocados, some carrots, some cucumber. These are salads, not like iceberg lettuce and some coleslaw looking something with some salad cream or dressing up top. No, that's not the move, fam. That's not the move. So eating a lot of good food where you are satiated is what you want to train yourself into. Instead of having 2 burgers, have 5 salads. And if you want to throw some, quality Rio Mare tuna or something into that salad to give it some protein or some more sustenance, do that. There's no end to how many salads I allow myself to have every day. And I vacillate between fruit salads and savory salads. But there's no end. If I feel like eating 5 times, I'll eat 5 times. If I feel like eating 3 times, I'll eat 3 because I know that it's all clean anyways. It's fruit and veg at the end of the day. So improper eating habits always result in the inability to replace that the body systems. Let me start that again. Improper eating habits always result in the inability to replace the vital nutrients that keep body systems running correctly and providing additional energy to spend living, not just surviving. Didn't we already say this about thriving and not just surviving? Inevitably, people use tea, coffee, soda, sweets, and other pick-me-up drinks to compensate for the energy deficit. You must understand that any such stimulant, only activates the SNS, which is the sympathetic nervous system, which is your fight or flight, and it releases more stress hormones and eventually requires more and more of the stimulant to get the desired effect. After a while, adrenal glands become exhausted, resulting in a number of symptoms, all of which are part of the chronic fatigue symptom profile. And yet they don't tell us this when we pop into the doctor's office. They're happy to give you some sleeping pills to get you to bed and then something in the morning to get you up and running. But if you just regulated your own blood sugar because you knew how to eat correctly, you wouldn't be feeling these highs and lows. You would be more in the middle, which is ultimately where we want to be. Our suffering as human beings is in that we go from really high highs to really low lows. Where you want to be is here, right? And it's the ego that helps that extreme variance to take place. That, as well as poor eating habits, not drinking enough, all of these things will have a great impact on our ability to live more in the middle and less in the extremities, if you will. If you've lost weight on a diet, you more than likely lost significant amounts of muscle. Remember that muscles burn energy. If you decrease muscle mass, your metabolic rate will be lower and you won't burn as much energy. This increases your chances of gaining back the weight that you lost. Then the yo-yo diet syndrome begins, which is even more stressful than a one-time diet. Each time you start and stop a diet, you significantly increase the difficulty of restoring your physiology to normal. And that's why, even though I advocate for cleanses and detoxes, primarily I want to train you all to eat properly so that you don't put your body through this. Because this last bit here tells us that the more we yo-yo, the more we vacillate, the more we play with our bodies, going from this diet to that diet, the harder it becomes to restore our physiology to normal. It is a great deal of stress on the body to go from eating only these kinds of foods and then something else because now you're trying this diet, the South Beach diet, but then last year you were really focused on being keto, yada, yada, yada. That's why my job really is to make you guys able to live so in your truth of what your body needs in terms of fuel and what is real food that you won't be even noticing, oh, this drug is out now for weight loss. Oh, that celebrity did this cleanse to remove 10 pounds from their midsection. Like that is not how you want to be living. You want to be equipped with the information that allows you to eat well day to day, with maybe the occasional detox or reset happening kind of around the time that the equinox happens. Those are generally good times, the spring equinox, the fall equinox, great time to reset and kind of cleanse and start anew. But generally speaking, even that's stressful on the body. You just want to be eating correctly for yourself at all times. And when you do, or at least 80% of the times, when you do, then you don't have to worry so much about fads and trends and what's cool and what everyone else is jumping onto. Does that make sense? And it just creates for quality of life for you. Less confusion, more clarity, and you just overstand and understand, this is what's good for me. All this other stuff is noise and it doesn't apply to me. I'm in tune enough with my body that regardless of what the propaganda machine and the media and all that are trying to spew about, consume less of this, consume more of that, because remember, they're all under the influence, right? And even our leaders who may put out suggestions about the food pyramid now and how it's evolved, Most of these people are under the influence of lobbyists, big food, big pharma. That's why you have to learn for yourself, feed yourself. Don't just ask me to take you over to, and I'm gonna mash up this whole proverb, but don't ask me to just bring you over to the water well or to the stream so I can feed you fish for a day. No, I want you to learn. Learn how to fish, learn how to feed yourself, and then untangle yourself, break away from the chains of all this incessant corruption and narrative driven agendas for how to keep you sick, bothered, unwell, so that you are susceptible to compliance, to programming, to indoctrination, but you're not healthy and you're not happy, right? And neither are the people that you care about. So it's more important that you learn. Once and for all, you learn. All right, so don't worry about counting calories. Today's magazines, sports stores, and specialty shops offer a wide variety of calorie counting gadgets. You can strap one onto your wrist or your ankle, go for a walk or a bike ride, and pound the Stairmaster for 30 minutes and decide how big a piece of pie you deserve for dessert. Well, there's some serious flaws in this approach. When trying to determine how many calories to consume each day, many fail to calculate how many calories it takes to meet the demands of just being alive. Think on that for a minute. Just being alive. A whopping 50 to 70% of all calories that you consume are used to generate the heat and life energy to keep the cells turned on, not cleaning the house or shooting a few hoops just alive, but real metabolic processes that are happening in the body as your organs are fighting to keep you alive. And you are depriving them because you haven't put enough calories in, and calories are what? Energy. And what's energy? Energy is fuel. Energy is fuel. Stop treating it like it's something that you can just brush off. Overstand and understand that energy is fuel, and therefore you need adequate fuel just to meet the basic standard processes that your body needs in order to keep you alive, to keep the heart pumping, to keep the lungs vacillating, to keep the digestive system going, to keep your colon removing and processing. All of these things. Do you know what I'm saying? I'm 26-year-old man doing that in weekly 8 times. Can you please tell me how to control what? Bad habits in general, gamer boy? So the first thing, if you are stifled, if you are challenged with eating well because you are already participating in what we in the wellness world call the Standard American Diet, which is an acronym for SAD, no cap, Standard American Diet, and you don't know how to get out of your cravings, start slowly, right? We need to build you up to a detox. A detox is ultimately what's going to help you no longer have cravings. I eventually have to get the sugar out of your system. I eventually have to get the gluten out of your system. I eventually have to get the pasteurized dairy out of your system in order for you to no longer have these cravings. That's what I have to do as a holistic practitioner when I take you on as a client. But I have to get you there in baby steps. We don't go cold turkey. So you and I have to get together first and foremost. We figure out your habits, what you're eating day in and day out. So what you're eating day in and day out, if you're sleeping enough, if you're going to bed enough on time, if you're hydrated enough, what you're primarily consuming. I want to know what your overall chi is, your check health index, so how much life force you have right now, because if your health appraiser questionnaire, for instance, comes back and you're extremely stressed out, maybe you have financial issues or professional challenges that you're dealing with, or perhaps it's relationship and romantic challenges that you're faced with right now, these are not the times that we detoxify you, because those challenges are big enough if you have an impending move coming, those challenges are big enough on their own, right? That we don't add more stress to that and put you on a detox, but we start to modify and tweak some things in your nutrition, in your other behavioral choices, i.e., when you go to sleep, how much water you're consuming. We address your stinking thinking, should that be present. We address your breath, all the rest of that. Because oftentimes when we eat emotionally, doing some my IG just went off. I guess I've been on for an hour. I must have hit the max. So let's wrap this up in a second. But basically, when you are coming off of anything that's stressful in life, we don't want to add to that by also detoxifying you, because that releases more toxins into the body, right? And so we'll just start to address other behavioral modifications first. What I was trying to say is actually breath is a great way to monitor your emotions so that you don't have to go for that piece of pie or that slice of cake, right? By just learning how to use tools that will help you regulate your breath, your heart rate, calm you down, take you off of the ledge. And then all of a sudden what you find is that emotion has dissipated, that energy is now moving, because emotion is what? Energy in motion. So once the energy which was blocked, the emotion is blocked. Once you get that moving through either movement, exercise, yoga, tai chi, qigong, breath work, meditation, any of things can facilitate that. All of a sudden, there goes your cravings. So we have a lot that we can do before we get you into a full detox. And then eventually we will get you to a full detox, but we work our way up. And that's why working with a holistic practitioner can be beneficial. Please understand, I'm doing in the bathroom. I think you're going to need to reach out to me, because this is very specific, Gamer Boy. And I want to keep it fairly general so that most people are able to grab something from this live that they can apply to their lives today, right now. Again, my job is to share the codes with you. So I want you to have the codes so that you can be empowered and live a better life. I'll just summarize this last paragraph, and then I'm going to come off this live because the IG is already taken me off the live. So I take it I've been on too long, yeah? So again, a whopping 50 to 70% of all your calories are consumed are to generate the heat and life energy to keep your cells turned on, not cleaning the house or shooting a few hoops, just alive. That's literally what 50 to 70% of your calories are for. So this is your resting metabolic rate, or your RMR. Another 5 to 15% of your caloric intake is needed for digestion and elimination. You also need to consider your daily activities and how your individual body functions. This is referred to as the X factor. And this is oftentimes downplayed, the X factor. Let me read to you what the X factor is. A variable that can either increase or decrease daily energy expenditure, i.e. how many calories you burn, based on several genetic, hormonal, and environmental factors. Fidgeting would fall into this X factor category. So that's as much as I'm going to read today. We're at page 210. I'll pick it up next week. Just like your face individually, you look differently. Your organs also different. Each individual organ. No two hearts are the same. No two pancreases are the same. No two colons. In fact, there's a great amount of variance between everyone's organs and where they're placed in the body, and their specific capabilities to either extract nutrients, to extract oxygen, and to operate at their best ability, at their capacity. There's a great deal of variance between all of us in terms of all of these things, not just where the organs are, but their shapes, their size, their density, etc. So if there is this much individuality to us as individuals, right, then perhaps you can appreciate why there isn't a one-size-fits-all solution in anything, and especially when it comes to healthcare. All right, so on that note, I'm going to jump off. Thank you all for joining. Thank you for the comments and the interaction. I really appreciate it. I'll see you all next week. Until next time, get free and stay free. Bye.